Oh, yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the new millennial conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you, and you are watching, and hopefully listening to, I think I got that backwards, the HoloNet on the mighty Mojo 50. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Saturday, the 31st of August, in the year of our Lord 2019. Hurricane Dorian is bearing down on the Florida coast. And, they're already saying that it's pretty much the president's fault. Yeah, it's already Donald Trump's fault that Hurricane Dorian's a thing. Or at least they plan on tying it around his neck as an albatross. With headlines running right now like, Hurricane Dorian already stirring political storms as Dems rip Trump. Hurricane Trump meets Hurricane Dorian in Puerto Rico from Politico, etc., so on. So forth. Trump reignites Puerto Rico feud among Hurricane Dorian from the Hill. Trump warns a very big Category 4 storm. As Hurricane Dorian loomed over Puerto Rico, Trump turned... Oh, wait, CNN. What do they got to say about it? Let's see. Man, my load times are miserable right now. It's terrible. Too many windows open. Too many windows. To the windows, to the walls, till the sweat drip down and fall. Yeah, not so much. But anyhow, cycling back to the stories of the day, the ones I actually intended to get to. Dave Chappelle could be the bravest stand-up comic in the world today. If you haven't seen his special Sticks and Stones on Netflix, there's probably a lot you're going to hate. There's a lot you're going to disagree with. There's a lot you're going to be offended by. And that's kind of the point. But it has to be said, this is a man of courage. This is a man who has looked the PC world in the face and said no more. Go to a story from the Washington Examiner. They say, in an hour of television, Dave Chappelle manages to offend practically every group in America, from, quote, heroin-addicted whites to LGBT people to Chinese Americans and pro-lifers, and that's what makes the comedian's new Netflix special, Sticks and Stones, so brilliant. It's also what makes it so triggering, at least to some. Woke scolds are out in full force after the special's airing this week, bashing the comedian for daring to poke fun at the transgender movement and making light of sexual abuse by celebrities such as Michael Jackson and Louis C.K. Link will be in the description. You gotta check this story out. But this is the battlefield, folks. This is the battleground that we're fighting on, and Dave Chappelle has planted his flag and made his stand, and God bless him for it. I realize that I'm not going to agree with him on a lot of things because I'm a conservative guy. That's okay. What we can agree on is the freedom of speech, and that comedians have to have the ability to poke fun at everybody, wholesale. And in that regard, Chappelle takes no prisoners and spares no lives. Now, when you think about what you have the ability to do, what you're capable of in this fight, when someone commits to stand with Patriot Mobile to support their values, their U.S.-based team takes that seriously. At Patriot Mobile, you're not just an account number. You are a part of an important movement doing life with real live humans that share your values. Patriot Mobile is a unique cell phone company that donates a portion of each bill to the causes that are fighting for our constitutional freedoms. When you switch over to Patriot Mobile, you'll be part of a movement that is a beacon of support for freedom, liberty, limited government, and traditional American values. Patriot Mobile provides reliable, nationwide coverage. Keep your phone number bring your own phone, or buy a new one. For a limited time, get a Moto Z3 Play for only $5 a month. Save $180 on this feature-rich phone while supplies last, with unlimited plans starting as low as $25 a month. Switch today. Visit patriotmobile.com/mojo50 or call 1-877-367-7524. Again, that's patriotmobile.com/mojo50 or call 1-877-367-7524. Tell them Matt from the HoloNet sent you. It's time to stand, folks. It's time to be a little bit like Dave Chappelle. As I'll tell you what, I've been listening to a lot of people this week. I've been listening to a bit of Tim Pool. Tim Pool was actually on Steven Crowder's show quite recently. That was actually rather good. And I've also been listening to Computing Forever, David Cullen. I listened to the excellence of elocution himself, Razor Fist, fellow Phoenician. And a lot of people are catching on to Hong Kong being the canary in the coal mine. And the stories coming out of Hong Kong indicate that this is actually getting worse. Go to the New York Times. In Hong Kong, protests resume after wave of arrests. This is barely a couple of hours old. Tens of thousands of black-clad protesters filled the streets around downtown Hong Kong's skyscrapers and department stores on Saturday, defying a police ban a day after several high-profile activists and pro-democracy lawyers were arrested. Tensions have been running high, partly because Saturday was the 5th anniversary of the day that Beijing announced a plan for limited democracy in the territory. That decision angered many in Hong Kong and triggered months of large-scale protests in 2014. Those protests, known as the Umbrella Movement, now seem almost sedate compared with the demonstrations now in their 13th weekend that have engulfed the semi-autonomous city this summer, often ending in street clashes and clouds of tear gas. Earlier this week, the police declined to issue a permit for the planned mass gatherings on Saturday that was meant to mark the anniversary. It was meant to be another large, overwhelmingly peaceful march that have punctuated the summer, organized by a long-established advocacy group, usually with police permission, attended by hundreds of thousands of people, including children. On Friday, after the police banned the Saturday march out of what they described as a concern for public safety, organizers said they were canceling it, essentially said for the same reason. But many protesters had already said on social media that they planned to march with or without police permission. And by midday Saturday, protesters had filled the soccer and basketball courts of a playground in Wan Chai, a neighborhood just a couple of subway stops east of the aborted march's planned starting point. Now, reports are coming in that Chinese military forces are now on standby to go into Hong Kong. And this is a developing story. I figure it's going to continue developing through the day. The People's Daily, the main newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party, warned Saturday that Beijing would not stand on the sidelines if the Hong Kong government was overwhelmed by quote-unquote turmoil. It likened the protesters to arrogant ants, warning that they stood no chance of prevailing over the central leadership in Beijing. Quote, "We also admonish all forces opposing China and throwing Hong Kong into chaos to by no means misjudge the situation and mistake our restraint for weakness." On Thursday, the Chinese military sent fresh troops to its Hong Kong garrison. Although the military called it a routine rotation, the move fueled speculation that Beijing might be quietly expanding its presence in the territory. Canary in the coal mine, starting to tweet. Now, we talked about this a bit last week, how I don't see that America has the political will or capacity to intervene meaningfully in the developing Hong Kong crisis in China. But something else came to mind when I was listening to David Cullen on Computing Forever. David Cullen brought up the Chinese social credit system, which, funny enough, hadn't really come to my mind. I know there have been a lot of people talking about it. It's been, it's bandied about on The Blaze. Sargon of Akkad actually talked about it when he was talking to Alex Jones this past week on InfoWars. And David Cullen also touched on it this week, as I said. But it made me think of two things. Not too long ago, on the HoloNet, see if I can pull it up for you. I'll definitely leave the link down at the bottom here. But on the HoloNet, I had put together a short piece that no platform was the first shot. Now I think we have a bigger issue. No platform was the warm-up round. When you take the concept of hashtag no platform or deplatforming people, I said it was the opening salvo of the Cold Civil War. I wrote this back in November of 2018. I'll get that up here for you. When I wrote that, here we go. I listed out, Mark Meechan, Count Dankula, Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys, Alex Jones and InfoWars, Owen Benjamin, Tommy Robinson, Paul Golding, Jada Franson and the Britain First Party as a whole, James Alsop, Roger Stone, Carl Sargon of Akkad, Anthony Cumia, Milo Yiannopoulos, Robert Stacey McCain, all casualties of the no platform movement. And this weekend, the events surrounding the Minds IRL event, which in its longer, fuller title, is an event decrying all forms of racism and seeking to extinguish racism. They actually wound up Tim Pool was talking about this. They wound up having to move the whole thing to a different location, to a backup location from the theater in New Jersey they were going to hold it at, because there were credible threats, according to Tim Pool. There were credible threats that there was going to be violence. Apparently the owners, at the risk of potentially misquoting Tim Pool, I wouldn't want to, apparently the owners were quite shaken up and were under the distinct impression that they had been threatened with having the theater burned down by these Antifa or Antifa-like groups in New Jersey who are seeking to deplatform or no platform a gathering against racism that even featured speakers from the Young Turks. We're not talking about just far righties here. We're talking about a generous spectrum of different speakers all coming together with the goal of creating a conversation. This is how far deplatforming has come. Now this weekend we have Paul Joseph Watson is out there in Hong Kong, according to InfoWars, so keep your eyes on his Twitter for some pretty quick developments. But Paul Joseph Watson and his website, Prison Planet, has also suffered this. Now, you take these two concepts, these two disparate concepts, and Wired has an interesting write-up about it, trying to say, it's not as bad as you think. But this social credit system in China, I was listening this morning on Glenn Beck, and apparently over 5 million people have been denied train tickets based on a social credit score that is undesirable, based on the government deciding that you're untrustworthy based on little actions. Now, here in the U.S., this is a mite harder to put through, but let me paint you a picture of not a hard and fast or legally engineered social credit system, but of a soft social credit system. It's already beginning. When you have Patreon and credit card processors who refuse to process transactions for conservative content creators. The reason why Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, was thrown off of Patreon because he dropped an N-bomb on an unrelated platform. He was on somebody else's YouTube channel in the comments, I believe it was. I'm not sure if he was on video. And he dropped an N-bomb unironically. Because he was, well, I guess it was ironically, actually, because he was dealing with a bunch of actual Nazis. And he said that Nazis were acting like N-words. Acting like the things that they themselves hate. And what better way to insult and troll a Nazi than to call them the very thing that they're against. But I digress. I don't want to defend Sargon's actions. I don't think anybody should use that word. But it also does remain that in context, dropping an N-bomb is not nearly as offensive in the UK as it is here in the United States. But again, I double digress. What remains frightening is that Patreon deplatformed Sargon of Akkad based on behavior outside of their platform. He didn't violate the Patreon T's and C's. He didn't post something using that word on his Patreon account. No, he made commentary on a different platform, on a different content creator's account on a different platform. And they got him. So now, let's look at Gab.ai. Gab has been deplatformed off of servers. Now let's look at Subscribestar, which, by the way, I have a profile on Subscribestar if you want to support the HoloNet. Subscribestar caught the ultimate snub from PayPal. PayPal refused to process any transactions for Subscribestar, which is huge. PayPal is a major player in online monetary transactions because apparently one of the major credit card providers didn't want to be tied up in this. That's the excuse that PayPal gave. So if you have major financial institutions, such as PayPal, because PayPal to rights is a bank now, more or less, who on purely political grounds are refusing to deal with somebody to carry their business, and I'm not saying they don't have a right, I'm a laissez-faire kind of guy, but if you have the coordinated deplatforming of a person or their business by multiple outlets, this isn't a coordinated central government thing like we're seeing in China, where suddenly your money's no good here because the government says you're a bad person. In the United States, it's becoming your money's no good here because a small plurality of the most powerful online companies say you're a bad person. Facebook even has these tenets set out where you're a troublesome person. I forget the exact term that they use. Steven Crowder, Louder with Crowder, Mug Club member. Don't have their mug, but I have mine on me right now. They can't get fired in California. So how far are we right now from a system of soft social credit? It makes you wonder if you're vocal in conservative circles, if you're published, if you've written a great deal, if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel. Even if you're not incredibly popular yet, it does make you wonder, what opportunities have you missed out on? And would you know it? Would they tell you that that's why you weren't approved for that loan, or maybe you didn't get a call back on that gig? Think about it. Is your online behavior being monitored by potential employers? We know now that it's a very common HR or recruiting practice to check somebody's Facebook profile or somebody's Twitter profile How many hiring decisions are being made based on social media credit? Based on problematic posts? There are a lot of stories out there right now of prominent Democrats making statements that Trump supporters need to be made to pay. They need to be made uncomfortable. I'm trying to see it right here. I believe it was Kamala Harris. I'll try to pull that up before we come back from the break here. But I think that there was a meme out. And it's very accurate. They're attacking President Trump, folks. But they're coming for us. They're coming for you. He's simply standing in the way. And recent comments from Democrats have only proven that. Before we go take a quick break, just wanted to talk to you very quickly about Atrantil. I know we've talked about them a lot. Atrantil is a very long-term supporter of Mojo 50, but you go to lovemytummy.com. That's lovemytummy.com/Mojo. Not Jojo, but Mojo. And you actually have an exclusive offer for Atrantil. Atrantil contains polyphenols. Polyphenols are needed by your body in order to regulate your gut. If you have gas, if you have bloating, if you have cramping, anything like that, Atrantil can help you out. If you got the bubble guts, if you got the thunder poops, anything like that, use code MOJO at checkout. You get 3 bottles of Atrantil for only $99. This, like I said, is a prebiotic based on cabracho extract. Contains horse chestnut, peppermint leaf. It changes your bowel habits, takes care of abdominal discomfort. And again, you get 3 bottles of Atrantil for only $99. You save $21. Check it out. lovemytummy.com/Mojo. I mean, that really is where it's at. I mean, because all of your health emanates from your gut. So do yourself a favor. If you're anything like me, you're not eating right, you're on the run all the time, and your stomach's just giving you hell for it. What have you got to lose? Try it out. Atrantil, lovemytummy.com/Mojo. 3 bottles, $99. Use code MOJO at the checkout. Take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the risks you take every day by clicking like and share. You're listening to HoloNet on the Mighty Mojo 50. Yes, we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Mighty Mojo 50. And as we talked about before we went to break, we're going to go to a little Wired article here. How the West got China's social credit system wrong. It occupies a spot next to Black Mirror and Big Brother in popular imagination, but China's social credit project is far more complicated than a single all-powerful numerical score. In October 2018, Vice President Mike Pence paid a visit to the Hudson Institute, a conservative Washington, D.C. think tank, to give a wide-ranging speech about the United States' relationship with China. Standing stiffly in a shiny blue tie, he began accusing the Chinese Communist Party of interfering with U.S. politics and directing Chinese businesses to steal American intellectual property by any means necessary. Pence then turned his attention to the country's human rights abuses, starting not with the persecution of religious minorities, but with a peculiar governmental initiative, the Social Credit Project. Quote, by 2020, China's rulers aim to implement an Orwellian system premised on controlling virtually every facet of human life, the so-called social credit score, Pence said. In the words of that program's official blueprint, it will allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to make a single step. There is no single all-powerful score assigned to every individual in China, at least not yet. The official blueprint Pence referred to is a planning document released by China's chief administrative body 5 years ago. It calls for the establishment of a nationwide scheme for tracking the trustworthiness of everyday citizens, corporations, and government officials. The Chinese government and state media say the project is designed to boost public confidence and fight problems like corruption and business fraud. Western critics often see social credit instead as an intrusive surveillance apparatus for punishing dissidents and infringing people's privacy. So, when did they sell Wired to the government of China? I'm curious. I realize it's a hell of a thing to insinuate, but this is an apologetic about the Chinese social credit system. So they go into a bunch of ACLU studies. You know, they talk about a story in The Verge. And, you know, PhD students in Berkeley studying the social credit system, stating it's been debunked. But at the end of the day, this is the Politburo. This is the Commissariat. Alles klar, Herr Kommissar? Folks, China laid the blueprints. And the world was rightly alarmed. But what's happening, in point of fact, in the United States is not going to come from our government. It is coming from big tech. It is coming from Facebook. It is coming from Alphabet, the parent company of Google. It's going to come from Amazon with Alexa. It's going to be done through selective marketing. And I know what I'm talking about here. I do marketing for a living. Beyond just, the HoloNet and Mojo 50, I do marketing. And there is no law in the United States right now that protects you or I or anybody else from discrimination based on political ideology. Let that sink in. Because that is going to become the greater bigotry in this nation. Who you voted for? What is your party affiliation? Because the golden days of the loyal opposition government in the parliamentary sense. That's what they call them in the UK, by the way. In other parliamentary systems, you have the government and then you have the loyal opposition. Because it's supposed to be a civil system where the minority party seeks in good faith to work with the party of majority, the ruling party. That's different now, and I've called this out on previous episodes of the HoloNet, going all the way back to 2017. That loyal opposition concept is gone. The civility of it is gone. We see each other as enemies in a very real sense. How many friendships have you lost? How many family members do you no longer speak to? Watson Prunier, Battle for Freedom, was talking about having an attitude of gratitude. My attitude of gratitude is that I have lost very few people in my life due to my political views. I have friends that have lost many. And that saddens me. That we're held so cheaply by those we care about that we can be cast aside due to our political beliefs. And this is because we're no longer just disagreeing in good faith with our friends and our families. They're demons now. They're subhuman. They're Untermenschen, as the Germans would teach us. Not so. I disavow socialism, communism, autocracy, fascism, any sort of large government control. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm a small government conservative with some libertarian tendencies. That's not what I want. But too often now we have, among the Republicans, we have where big government is okay as long as it's doing what I want it to do. We're afraid of the government censoring us. We're censoring each other. The government doesn't have to. You're doing it now. I do it. However, unintentionally. The left is doing it en masse. Shutting off an entire half of the nation from polite society. People saying that once you've voted for Trump, you should wear that like a scarlet letter the rest of your life. That you've betrayed humanity. That you've betrayed our nation. You truly are deplorable in every sense of the word. All for a difference in political opinion. This is why Americans feel like we're the closest to an armed civil conflict than we've been since the 1860s. This is why gun sales are through the ceiling. This is why you need to protect yourself. Speaking of sales that should be through the ceiling, combat flip-flops. That's got to be like the weakest segue I've ever done. I mean, that's like a segue on 10% battery right there. CombatFlipFlops.com, guys. If you haven't been on there, I don't know why you haven't been on there. I don't know what else I can do to get you to check these guys out. They're veterans. Veteran-owned corporation. They did the coolest thing. They straight jacked a Soviet boot factory in Afghanistan, and they rebuilt it and repurposed it to make awesome footwear, to make friggin' flip-flops, and like their version of Converse, like the camo MK19s. I gotta get me a pair of those. You can help them out. You can help win the peace, build a better human. You can help educate the women who were held in ignorance by Taliban forces for decades. You can bring peace through prosperity, through economic growth and development and entrepreneurship to these war-torn places. Or, you can give that $50 to Nike if you really want to give, Kaepernick another coin in his pocket and you want to support slave labor in Bangalore. God love you. Pick up those Nikes or those Adidas. By all means, go for it. Or you can take that same money, make it do some good, put it to work. Same thing I told you with Patriot Mobile. Take your dollars that you're going to spend anyway and make them do some good. Support a great cause. Support veterans. Support entrepreneurship. Support building the peace. Support Mojo 50 and support the HoloNet. Go to Combat Flip Flops. HOLLOW25 is your promo code. HOLLOW25 is your promo code for 25% off your purchase. Do it now. CombatFlipFlops.com. Got the Men's Zero Rise Flopperators. You got the new MK19s. I like the AK-47s. I want to get a pair of those too. Join the unarmed forces. CombatFlipFlops.com. So back to the stories that we're running through. Two stories that kind of jumped up and bit me. One is out of the UK. And I realize this is kind of radical change in topic. There's a gender change clinic for children as young as 3 that is seeking to grow their reach and be able to address and diagnose more patients through Skype and through video calling. I don't know if you've ever had an experience with using like a teledoc program. I have. And, it's cool. You can call up a doctor. You can like Skype call or video call. I'm motioning with a phone even though I have my phone. And you can talk to the doctor face-to-face, describe the symptomology that you're having. Oh, doc, my sinuses are all inflamed and what? I think I might have a sinus infection. I've got all kind of pretty colors coming out, this, that, and the other. And they can help you out that way. And this story is just taking forever and a week to load. But what we're finding out now is that this office in the UK, this gender-changing clinic for children as young as 3, is now seeking to see more patients every day and potentially give them diagnoses of like gender dysphoria and such, and recommend that they be put on life-changing hormonal treatments based on a Skype call. Link will be in the description. I know I'm having some browsing problems right now. My laptop has just gone straight to hell. By the by, if you're interested, you can support the HoloNet on Subscribestar. You can find us there, and also on Patreon, because I gotta get a new laptop. This thing owes me nothing. I'm gonna see if I can pull up that story here. Sorry, guys. Got to change things over here. Here we go. 4 days ago. So, they can get sex change advice from a doctor via Skype in the UK. The UK's National Health Service is considering a plan that would allow patients, including young children, to consult with a doctor about gender transition remotely via video conference services, according to the Daily Mail. A clinic in the UK that evaluates patients for potential gender transition treatments has seen an increase in patient volume of more than 400% since 2013, resulting in a waiting list of about 2 years. More than 2,500 children were referred to the clinic last year, including some 3- and 4-year-olds. I've got 3-year-olds. And they are not equipped psychologically or emotionally to have any idea what any of this means. They're little boys. They're small. They have imaginations. They believe they're cartoon characters a lot of the time. Healthy imaginations and good old-fashioned upbringing. They pretend to be Donkey Kong. Things of that nature. Or other such characters. They're kids. So, as a parent, I cannot get myself mentally to a place where I believe it is any kind of responsible to be talking about gender transition with my 3-year-olds. It's insanity. Let alone to use a teledoc service, a Skype call, a video conference, to have a doctor assess them for gender reassigning treatments, like to put them on puberty blockers. This is absurd. This is one of the most direly life-changing decisions that anyone could ever make. Never mind the ramifications of gender dysphoria being a now socially acceptable illness of the mind. It is a dysfunction of the mind. I've always believed that. I'm not saying transgendered people are bad people. I'm saying they have a psychological dysfunction. They have a psychological issue. Like so many Americans. Like Americans who suffer from depression, or Americans who suffer from borderline personality, or bipolar disorder. It's a disorder of the mind that needs to be treated through counseling, through therapy, not through radical, life-changing mutilations that are currently masqueraded about and bandied about as surgical procedures that I'm certain future generations will look back on as barbaric as summary amputations in the Civil War are seen today. Three-year-olds, 4-year-olds, my God. And to be able to deal with that as casually as you would a cold or a flu or a minor infection. When I call about my kids to the teledoc, 9.5 times out of 10, they say, we can't deal with this over the phone. Take the kid to the urgent care clinic, or take the kid to their normal practice pediatrician, or even a couple of times take the kid to the ER. We can't deal with this over the phone. But you're telling me that the UK's National Health Service thinks that you can work with a 3 or a 4-year-old, or hell, even an adult, on gender reassigning treatments through a Skype call? We've hit peak insane, folks. And by saying this, I could be disqualifying myself from employment for the next 20 years based on the soft system of industry-driven social credit. The implied social credit system that is steadily evolving here in the United States. Dave Chappelle's famous enough, but hell, I'm not. Most of the great hosts and creators that I know aren't. And if it's left up to the people on the left, to the progressives, to the liberals, to the likes of CNN, MSNBC, and the Young Turks, people like you, people like me, we'd never work again. In their eyes, in a nation in which they are victorious, we would have to wear our shame for the rest of our lives. That we voted for Trump. We supported Trump. That we're bigots. We're racists. Because we dared to disagree with them. Because we dared to say that as a sovereign nation, we have the right, nay, the responsibility to police our borders and decide who may enter and who may not. Because we had the temerity to say that nations that are failed states in a state of massive unrest, who are being taken over by militant Islamist jihadists, that we have to halt immigration from those nations until we can determine a proper methodology for vetting refugees. Because we had the temerity to say that these nations, which are majority Muslim, are the ones being overtaken by Islamist jihadis, the same groups that attacked the United States in the Middle East and also on 9/11. Because we had the unmitigated gall to say that we have a right to preserve our economy against erosion from foreign actors who are acting in foul play and are not acting in good faith. That we have the gall to say that China is adversarial in nature, in an economic and in a political sense. We had the nerve to say that the European Union is a screw job and that Britain is quite right to want to leave. We had the daring to say all these things because President Trump stood in front and said, America first. And make America great again. And that gave so many people the courage to stand up and say, yes, these things are true. These things are not popular right now, but they are true. The left likes to paint it that President Trump made bigotry okay, and that now all the white supremacists are coming out of the woodwork because they've been told through dog whistles that it's okay. I think they got it wrong. I think the average American heard the message that it's okay to come out now, that the dominion of the coasts holds no sway, that you have no power here. As the very popular meme goes, depicting Theoden of Rohan telling Gandalf that he has no power here. That the dominion of the coasts was broken, if only for a time. And that flyover country had spoken, and spoken clearly and in a unified voice, that no, we should not be ashamed to hold a different view from the Hollywood and New York elites, that we should not be made to feel ashamed of American exceptionalism, that we should not be ashamed of valuing our Constitution, our God-given freedoms, and by believing that, yes, they are God-given and not a product of a government or a law. But in a world where they are victorious, they would have us carry our shame to the grave. And that is the soft social credit system that they are building right now as we speak without us ever casting a single vote. And it's being done not in the halls of Congress, but in the halls of Silicon Valley. Stand guard, my friends. Thoughts and prayers tonight go out to all those affected by Hurricane Dorian. I was on the phone to friends and family in Florida telling them to batten down the hatches and buckle up, because it's going to be a rough one. Did want to let you know that our friends over at Odyssey One Station, ODYSY1 Radio, for your science fiction and paranormal, they have a drive that's going on right now. It is the Federation drive. I've got a minute left here. I want to try to get to it. But yes, Odyssey 1 and the Federation drive. Here we go, if I can get to it in time. Oh no, wrong email. Less than a minute. Okay. Okay, so Odyssey 1 is Federation Humanitarian Services are preparing for Hurricane Dorian. That's a quick note. That's the Federation Disaster Relief Services. They're based in New Orleans. They're gearing up to send aid to Florida following the storm. Spread the word. It's trekfederation.com/donate. trekfederation.com/donate. This is our Odyssey Radio, Odyssey One station, and they are getting that together right now. Again, trekfederation.com/donate. If you can help out, please do. And otherwise, good night. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, this is the HoloNet. End transmission.